The mandate of the Agnes Jameson Gallery specifically is landscape, is to explore Canadian landscapes. And so I mean, we talked a little bit over there about geology as the foundation of the landscape. But also we're taking it a step further into looking at culture and society and influence of geology and in particular minerals on that aspect of things. In the triptych at the front, I chose, rather than put a photograph, to do a reproduction of like a 19th century curio cabinet as a tribute to that citizen scientist, the early discoverers, that in the day when real science was done by high school educated laymen and every well-heeled gentleman had a curio cabinet in the corner. We've lost that connection with our natural world and particularly with the sciences. Minerals especially tend to have this sort of moniker, this specter hanging over them of being overly sciencey. And I really lament that. I have a sort of a much bigger picture of these things, and so I want to bring a little bit back, bring back a little bit more of that more easily appreciated nature of the minerals and the science of geology and that story of the earth that they tell the show. First Kingdom, Art of the Canadian Shield. First Kingdom refers specifically to minerals as one of the three traditional kingdoms of nature, so animal, vegetable, mineral. There's actually about 7 or 8 different kingdoms of nature now, but it can all be sort of simplified down to that. And minerals, of course, being the most basic, most primary, the original, the first kingdom of nature. And then Art of the Canadian Shield is somewhat of an adjunct, just to clarify a little bit that this was primarily about the minerals, about the landscape, and not primarily for its perhaps religious connotations that might be if it had just been called First Kingdom. But I want to play with that it could be taken in that way, not just religious, but philosophically. So this room is entitled Three Kingdoms. So here I look at the 3 philosophical domains of nature. So the kingdom of earth, kingdom of man, and the kingdom of heaven. So this is to sort of represent the very fundamental nature of geology. The sand here is it's a photomicrograph. It's 1 centimeter field of view of sand from the Gull River. To show the very fundamental, basic nature of geology, but also to its enduring nature. And also those fundamental forces of nature that eventually we will all be ground down to dust. So the salt, though, I mean, there is an obvious textural, visual similarity there with the salt and the sand, but also that salt is a mineral. It's the mineral halite, which is fundamental to all life. And from the oceans, all life evolved and eventually moved out into land, so the sand and the salt there. In the kingdom of man here, we have our beginnings of our exploration of discovery and use in a modern sense. I mean, since before there was civilization, we've always used stone tools, basic rudimentary tools. But our earliest fascination in stone, aside from that tool use, is in the aesthetic and the adornment. So, you know, one of the first things that we did with pretty stones was we ground them down. We cut and polished them into beautiful faceted stones, but also ground them down into mineral pigments here. So these are our mineral pigments here: vermilion, antimony, and cerusse, which is French for lead. These are the popular colors of Victorian makeup. And so while we were so concerned about appearance and adorning ourselves with all of the finest color and fashion we could find, skin was sloughing off and teeth were turning black and people were slowly dying of mercury poisoning and all the rest. Fear not, these are just stand-ins, they're not really poisonous. But so anyway, this really is not so much a statement, although there is a bit of the cautionary tale there of the at our own peril, but really just a sort of a chronicle of the evolution of our understanding and appreciation of these things, which then brings us to Kingdom of Heaven, which is man as maker. Now we have transcended this notion of just merely shaping and repurposing stone to actually extracting from it those fundamental elements of nature, such as silicon, which is the basis of our technological society today. But, you know, aside from all of those fundamental natures and our curious dalliances into messing with nature, above it all stands, or beneath it all, is the timekeeper, who just watches silently in judgment over us all. So, know your role. That's the upshot there.